The Max Kellerman Show. Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio.
The New York Football Giants are still going to win the NFC East. The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80. And on your smart speaker, you can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. They're going to win the NFC East. You look at the schedule, you think, no, it's too much. There are reasons. I'm going to get into them in a second. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. By the way, they're a new challenger to the Chiefs in the AFC. Is that what we saw last night? Be a part of Max Kellerman Nation on the Dr. Pepper Twitter feed call-in line. ESPN Nation's presented by Dr. Pepper. The college football season's heating up. So is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town, Fansville. Head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to an ice-cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. But first, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, and it begins with another NFC East team. Boy, for a team known as the NFC Least, which, you know, a division not long ago, we were saying, is this the worst division in the history of football, let alone the NFL? Got a lot of NFC East news off the top. But Jalen Hurts wins his first start, gave the Eagles offense the jolt that Coach Doug Peterson was looking for, and beat the Saints 24-21. Beat the Saints 24-21. It's the best team in football right now, at least the best defense. Hurts went 17 for 30 for 167 yards and a touchdown, ran 18 times for 106 yards. So does that mean it's a wrap for Wentz? Is that what that means? I got to get into all of this because it relates to the Giants and the whole thing. Look, what more do you have to see? There is such a mountain of evidence at this point. There is such a mountain of evidence at this point as it relates to Wentz. Like, how many data points do you need before you're like, yep, this is a problem? Carson Wentz, and by the way, I had notes on this because I was so, I'm watching the game feverishly, writing down my notes that I'm going to say to Dan Orlovsky on the air the next day, right? But of course, I get so excited I forget the notes. What more do you have to see? There's such a mountain of evidence that it's like it's now gratuitous. Do I really need to bring it up? Apparently I do. There's so many excuses for Wentz, so many arguments for Wentz. Is it a wrap for Carson Wentz? Well, let's start with the specifics from this season, okay? The Eagles' offensive line. They've had a ton of injuries along the offensive line, right? And it feels like they've started a different guy or a different set of guys each week. But I told you the offensive line wasn't the issue. I told you the offensive line, according to ESPN Analytics, was 12th in the league in pass block win rate. They're not 12th anymore. They're 11th. They're 11th in the league in pass block win rate. They're an upper third team, basically, more or less, right on the border. Not just upper half, upper 50 percentile, upper third in the NFL. And they're better even run blocking. So let me be clear about this. This above average pass blocking group had given up the most sacks in the league going into yesterday. Everyone wanted to blame the offensive line and protect Wentz. But I said, no, it's Wentz. All right, well, now we have a perfect experiment. What happens when we put a rookie quarterback starting behind this line against the number one defense in the league? What happens? Well, I'll tell you in a second because my script, Raj, I wrote it out. I wrote out notes so I wouldn't, in between the radio show and the TV show, I wrote out, like I scripted notes for myself so I wouldn't forget anything. Uh-huh. And do you know when you're clicking on something and you accidentally send it to the garbage, to the trash?
Oh, no.
Then you got to go get it back? That's where I am right now.
Okay.
So forget my notes. What happens when you send a rookie quarterback, taken in the second round, making his first career start, by the way, out to face the best defense in the league? Well, if Wentz is getting crushed, this quarterback must be getting crushed, right? He must be getting crushed. Wrong. How many times was he sacked last night? 0. Hurts was sacked a grand total of 0 times yesterday. 0.00. It's Animal House, Raj. By the way, was he moving the chains? How'd the Eagles' offense look? Better, right? It came alive, didn't it? Now, part of that is Jalen Hurts' mobility. It is true. Like on the Miles Sanders, what, he had an 82-yard touchdown? What happened there? What set up that play? The defense is afraid that Hurts keeps the ball, right? So it freezes not only the defensive line, but the linebackers get frozen for a second, and Sanders takes off, right? That sets that up. Hurts' mobility. But don't tell me that that's the reason he's not getting sacked. Could Randall Cunningham move? Was he a mobile quarterback? Could he scramble? Randall Cunningham was sacked one season 60 times. That was his second highest total. By the way, with the Eagles, he was sacked 72 times another season. No, it's not that Hurts is mobile, that he's not getting sacked. Let me ask you this. Why is it that the team won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles? Why is it that the team the following season, when Carson Wentz got hurt, was 5-6 and on their way to a pitiful attempted defense of their Super Bowl crown because they were going to miss the playoffs? But when Foles took the ball under center, they got white hot and made the playoffs and then beat the Bears at Soldier Field. And then Foles threw a perfect pass if Alshon Jeffrey doesn't drop the ball. They beat the Saints. They're going to the NFC Championship game with road wins against that Bears defense and the Saints. Why is it that when Josh McCown last year, I told you last year what Wentz was doing? Come on, guys. He's getting lucky late in games against awful teams in the worst division in football. Why is it when Josh McCown played in the playoffs, remember Wentz got hurt again, McCown comes in, a 40-year-old quarterback with a bum leg. They lost to Seattle by the same score they'd lost to Seattle of that same season, week 12 of that same season, with Wentz at quarterback. The team functions better without Wentz. Want to know why? Because all these other quarterbacks aren't know-it-alls who are going to do it their way. What have I been hearing out of Philly the last couple of years? Wentz doesn't run Peterson's offense. He changes it constantly. Did you see Doug Peterson at the post-game presser? He wouldn't say whether Jalen Hurts is going to start against Arizona. What? He wouldn't say if Jalen Hurts is going to start next week? He's got to start for the rest of the season. Hurts got to start for the rest of the season. Duh. This ain't hard. Listen to Coach after the game. Tell me if you think this sounds like a coach with autonomy who can make decisions, or if this coach is shook because the quarterback's got a direct line to the owner. You tell me what you think. Here is Coach Doug Peterson after the game.
You know, I'm gonna enjoy this one. I'm gonna go home and relax and be with my family tonight and enjoy this win and get ready for the week.
Mm-hmm. He can't answer directly. Know why he can't answer directly? He's scared. He's scared of the power that Wentz has in the organization still. Howie Roseman drafted a quarterback in the second round. He did it instead of getting a better receiver in a trade like DeAndre Hopkins or moving up in the draft like CeeDee Lamb or getting some defensive help, because if Wentz kept regressing, they were going to have to give another guy a look, and he believed in Hurts. By the way, so far so good with Hurts. I'm not saying, because he's finally named Hurts the starter, by the way, Peterson. I'm not saying that Hurts is the answer. I'm saying you better find out if he's the answer, or if you got to use your very high draft pick this offseason on a quarterback. That's what I'm saying. Meantime, Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers play Buffalo on Sunday night. That's the primetime game. And what did I tell you before this game started? Before the game, I picked the Bills. And what did I say? People were going to overreact to this. Guys, Pittsburgh, you always looked at their schedule. The reason they were undefeated so long is, one, they're a very good team with an excellent defense, and a quarterback who at age 38, coming off catastrophic injuries, had a remarkable season. He's not great, but he's good. And that's great for a 38-year-old coming off a catastrophic injury and missing a whole year. Just stepping in. A guy who's always held the ball too long, getting rid of it quicker than anyone ever, basically. He's having an excellent year, all things considered. They have some offensive weapons, too. You know, not amazing, or not an amazing array, but they got some receivers if Deontay can hold on to the ball. But what I tell you going in, the schedule is getting tougher, and that coincides. Remember how devastating it was when the Titans got COVID for the Steelers' schedule when they had to give up their bye late in the season and take a week 4 bye? Because they were going to have this, the schedule got tougher right when they wouldn't have had a bye in forever. But okay, the league's going to give them a mini bye. They'll rejigger the schedule, give them a mini bye. No, they lost the mini bye too because the Ravens got COVID. So they played 3 games in 13 days, and they looked tired against Washington, which is why they had a 2-touchdown lead. And in spite of being 109-2-1, 109 wins, 2 losses, and a tie, in 112 career starts in the Ben Roethlisberger era, that was their record: 109 wins against 2 losses and a tie, when they were up 2 touchdowns at any point in any game. And they collapsed against Washington. Why? Because late in the game, they get tired. It's their 3rd game in 13 days against a surging defense. They didn't have a full week's rest going into the Buffalo game. It was 6 days, right? So they have 5 days rest, and on the 6th day, they got to play. So on a short week, they play their 4th game in 19 days, and guess what? They had a lead and let it go again. Because against a very good Bills team, it's a war of attrition at this point in the season, and they wore down. They attritioned. That's it. I'm not saying the Steelers would beat the Bills under, like, neutral circumstances. I'm saying let's not overreact to the loss. You know when the Steelers are going to look really good? When they get their first full week's rest before they play the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals are so bad, they make the Cowboys look like the Chiefs. Right? Pittsburgh's going to look good against them. Now, how do they look at the end of the season against the Browns? I don't know. Let's see. They curb stomped the Browns the first time they played, but Cleveland's come up in the world and Pittsburgh's been struggling a little bit. I think Pittsburgh's likely to lose one of their last 2 games because, again, the schedule got tougher. And they'll be a 13-win team this season. I ain't sweating. I'm not worried about Pittsburgh. Now, here's the question. Are they a challenge to the Chiefs without a running game? That's bad, no run game. But Roethlisberger and Tomlin have come up with this get the ball out quick, really short passes that kind of simulate a running game, which is why Pittsburgh, in terms of time of possession, is an elite team. They're among the league leaders in terms of time of possession. And that's significant against Kansas City because the way to beat Kansas City, you keep Mahomes off the field. Keep the ball as much as possible. And Pittsburgh may be able to simulate that without a run game. Now, I ain't picking no one against the Chiefs. I'm picking no one against the Chiefs. Before I move on to that game, though, here's Mike Tomlin. After his Steelers, a very tired Pittsburgh team, lost to, the latest contender to the Chiefs in the AFC, the Buffalo Bills.
Not enough playmaking for us tonight, and it's really as simple as that. Particularly in the second half. At the beginning of the second half, I thought they heated up offensively, and we weren't able to keep pace with them. He extended some plays, he being Allen, and got outside the pocket some. We can't have that. We got to possess the ball better. We got to score more points on offense. We got tough as attrition set in. We got to find a way to collect ourselves and make sufficient plays, and we didn't. We accept responsibility for that and get ready for our next opportunity.
That was Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. So the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to get to the Giants in a second. Do you understand? Remember what I said on Friday, if you were listening to the show? I was so sorely tempted when we did NFL Whip Around to take the Dolphins in an upset. Playing at home, desperate to keep pace with the Bills, who were favored to beat the Steelers, because, again, the Steelers, 4th game in 19 days. The Patriots no longer dominating the division. Now it's wide open, Their first-round quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, actually played well yesterday, I thought. And the defense got after it. And they're at home. Do you understand? That's as bad as Patrick Mahomes can play. Patrick Mahomes threw 2 interceptions in the first quarter. 3 for the game. Miami jumps out to a 10-0 lead at home. Like, imagine that. Imagine if you said, hey, Miami, you're going to be up 10-0 in the first quarter. Mahomes will have thrown 2 interceptions. He's not going to be done, though. He's going to throw another interception later in the game. And you're all together going to score 27 points. Miami would be like, ooh, and Tua's going to play well. Ooh, we're at home, too. We got this. Nope. At one point, the Chiefs were winning 30-10. What? 30-10? A hungry Miami team with an excellent defense and a real coach and a young ascending quarterback playing well get 2 turnovers out of Patrick Mahomes in the first quarter, jump up 10 points, and lose. Guys, Chiefs ain't losing. They can't play worse than that. Mahomes wind up with 393 yards passing. And what do you add? Another 3 touchdowns? That's as bad as he can play. What are you going to do to be... I said it on First Take today. You know how the Chiefs are going to lose? An act of God. And when Stephen A. said, well, no, it could also be X, Y, and Z, I pointed out X, Y, and Z happened. It happened. And it didn't matter. It did not matter. Mahomes is a bad dude, and Travis Kelce is the best tight end on earth right now, active tight end, and one of the best pass-catching tight ends who ever lived, let's be honest. And Tyreek Hill is the world's fastest land mammal. It is tough. And by the way, the defense is a little bit underrated. Like, doesn't remind me as much as of like last year's Chiefs defense, where you're like, yeah, they're pretty good, actually. It reminds me of the year before, where it's like, they're a little better than giving credit for. Maybe they're not as good as last year, but they're like the year, and they should have won the Super Bowl the year before. Pre-snap penalty gave Brady the ball back, AFC Championship game. He threw an interception to end that game. If no pre-snap penalty, Chiefs win, and I think they beat the Rams. I think they win the Super Bowl this year, guys. If that Miami team's not good enough to beat them at home with everything that happened, I don't think anyone's good enough to beat them. Now the Giants, the New York Football Giants. New York, I got you. My New York Football Giants. I've never given up hope. Never when others were saying, leave them for dead, tank. Why, I said, no, I think Gettleman has him on the right track. That's the way I choose to remember things. The Giants looked bad yesterday, and Daniel Jones looked like he really regressed. But I want to say something about that. I think the Giants are going to win the division. And I am putting some faith in their ability to win a game they're supposed to lose. I think they'll be either the Browns or the Ravens. I think they're going to win one of those 2 games. And I think they'll beat the Cowboys on the last day of the season. And when you look at Washington's schedule, because right now the Giants are 1 game behind Washington, but remember, they own the tiebreaker. They beat Washington twice this year. So they just need the same record as Washington. They're 1 game behind. So can the Giants go 2-1, and can Washington go 1-2? Well, Washington should lose to Seattle. Might beat Seattle, but they should lose to them. Then there's the Panthers, then there's the Eagles. So you think, oh, that's win-win. Washington's going to wind up, the Giants should go 1-2, Washington should go 2-1. Or if they both go 2-1 or they both go 1-2, Washington's a game up. Not so fast with the Eagles, everybody. The Eagles, as soon as Doug Peterson got a quarterback to run his offense, and not to be so thick-headed and arrogant and insistent upon doing it his way, all Hurts did was play within himself. That's all he did. They just beat the best defense in the NFL, the hottest team in football. They just beat them outright. They didn't cover. They beat them. Right? They didn't beat the spread. They beat the team. You tell me the Eagles can't beat Washington? They just beat New Orleans. They can't beat Washington, especially since Alex Smith's, okay, it's like a calf strain, right? But the fact of the matter is, that's on the same leg that he hurt. That's a damaged leg. If I'm a Washington fan, I'm like, oh, I'm not counting on Alex Smith this year. And he's such an upgrade over Dwayne Haskins. Haskins was bad yesterday. Forget about the numbers. He was bad. He threw a ball. It should have been an interception. It was incomplete, very close to an interception. He's bad. So Dwayne Haskins against the Eagles without Carson Wentz? Uh-oh. Washington may lose that game. If they wind up with the same record as the Giants are going to the playoffs. Now, Daniel Jones. He looked bad yesterday, no doubt about it. And the defense looked tired. Because if the defense is always on the field, they're going to get tired. But what's Daniel Jones' game based on? His wheels, right? Like, if you take away his wheels, it's a huge part of his game. He was immobile because his hamstring is clearly still bothering him. He rushed himself back. And so he didn't look the same. Once they know he's just going to be a pocket guy, it's a different ballgame. I think a more fully healed up Daniel Jones. Look, he's 18th in QBR, including yesterday's game. So 18th is like a tick below average, but it's in average range as a starter. Who does Washington have like that if Alex Smith isn't ready to go? They don't. And so a more healthy Daniel Jones, I think, will continue to improve, at least play around league average, which is pretty good. And that should be enough for the Giants to compete against the Browns, like get a win they shouldn't get because of their defense, either against the Browns or the Ravens. And that'll get them, provided they beat the Cowboys last week of the season. That might be enough to get them to the playoffs. Win the NFC East. Meantime, an unlikely hero may have saved the Bears' season. I'll tell you how that affects the Eagles and Carson Wentz. It's time for some straight talk. Look, we all drop our phones. It happens. You fumble it, crack it, splash it. Well, straight speaker, you can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Yeah, Bears fans, I'll take some calls. Raiders still not ready to take the next step. I'll talk about that in a few, too. But the Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Bears get the win with Trubisky at quarterback against the guy who everyone brings up, one of the guys. When Trubisky's name comes up, oh, you traded up to get Trubisky, you pass on Deshaun Watson, and obviously Mahomes. And Trubisky's haunted by that. And I got to say something about Trubisky. I want to compare him to Carson Wentz for a second. Wentz has been more successful as a pro. Both of them, in each case, the team traded up to get that guy and drafted him second overall. In Trubisky's case, the team doesn't pick up his option, his fifth-year option. In Wentz's case, it gets over $100 million. But who'd you rather have, Trubisky or Wentz? I can't believe I'm saying this. I'd rather have Trubisky. When Trubisky got benched in favor of Nick Foles, he took it like a man. He stood up whatever the team needs. I'm not playing well enough. And had a good relationship with Foles. He never moped or complained or whined or felt sorry for himself. He worked hard, stayed ready, got into the game. And by the way, his offensive line's playing for him. They're run blocking. Look at the yards Montgomery picked up, right? That's the way you take it. Not like Carson Wentz. You see Carson Wentz moping and pouting and everything. Boo-hoo. Well, of course, I want to be starting. But no, Carson, you get up there, you say, look, I wasn't playing well enough. Coach feels right now that Nick Foles gives the team in this case, Jalen Hurts gives the team a better chance to win. I'm here for Jalen Hurts to support him. But of course I want to be a starting quarterback. I want to be the starting quarterback. Like, that's how you say it, not, well. And look, Trubisky, what does he do? He plays well. He outplayed Deshaun Watson. Now, if you switch teams, I'm quite sure Deshaun Watson would have outplayed him, right? Deshaun Watson had nothing around him, and on top of that, his receivers were dropping balls and stuff. And he doesn't have a defense at all. And Trubisky has a real defense, and now his O-line's run blocking at least. Give him credit, he won. Remember about, I don't know, at this point, 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, I said maybe the Bears would trade for Carson Wentz. Remember, because Trubisky wasn't throwing. Trubisky can't throw the ball down the field. Nick Foles can't move. But Carson Wentz can do both, right? So you think maybe the Bears would think, and you reunite him with his quarterbacks coach and all that stuff, right? And you think maybe it'd be a fit. Maybe you could snooker the Bears into trading for Carson Wentz. Give him Nick Foles, and of course, Foles ain't going to be much better with the Eagles. Everyone will be a little better than Carson Wentz at this point. But the point was to get out from under Carson Wentz's contract. There's no getting out from under now. If you were the Bears, would you rather have Mitch Trubisky right now or Carson Wentz? Mitch Trubisky, to whom you are not obligated to pay a cent in the fifth year, versus Carson Wentz, who you're on the hook for another $60 million. Who would you rather have? Under Mitch Trubisky, who took his benching like a man, came back in and led his team to victory, supported Nick Foles during that time, showed humility, got better, came back in and played well and beat Deshaun Watson. And Mitch Trubisky never asked to be compared to Mahomes or Deshaun Watson. And he always took it, I thought, good-naturedly. didn't give into it, but also was like not snapping at people for bringing it up and acting entitled, you know? Yeah, I'd rather have that guy than Carson Wentz all day. And by the way, over time, your teammates will respond to that. That O-line was blocking for him last night. They were getting a run game going. I don't think that's coincidental. Remember last year when I was saying, a couple years ago, I was saying the team doesn't play for Carson Wentz. Oh, Max, you think a receiver's not just going to give extra effort to catch a ball? It's not quite that simple. It's like that Al Pacino speech from Any Given Sunday, and it's kind of corny and hackneyed and everything. Even though Any Given Sunday is a good movie, but when he's like, if you have to fight for that extra inch, right? But the fact is, it's a game in the trenches, decided largely in the trenches. And these guys are, yeah, it's true. If in a full contact, violent sport, you know, on the one hand, you can say, well, it's like this is Spinal Tap. Remember the speaker that goes up to 11? He's like, well, why don't you just make 10, just make 10 the highest? And he said, yeah, but this one goes to 11, right? I think that logic is used a lot of time. Like, Max, what do you think? Really? This one goes to 11? They're going as hard as they can. Nope. Because adrenaline can kick in. And there can be, like, literally chemicals released in your body that make you capable of doing things that you're not capable of otherwise. So your mood actually affects that. Does a team pull together and feel responsible for each other? And so there's a sense of urgency? Yeah, I think that makes players better. They don't have that when Wentz quarterbacks. I saw that from the Chicago Bears last night with Trubisky. I saw it from the Eagles with Jalen Hurts. Saw it. Matt Nagy, the embattled Bears head coach, explains the offensive explosion.
So I would say offensively, like I've been saying for the last 3 weeks, I think we're starting to create an identity. You're feeling it. You're seeing it on the scoreboard. And so when you have that and we're not having a lot of third downs. We were getting a lot of third downs early in the season. We're not now. We're scoring points. There's a confidence right now in this offense. And that part I appreciate from these players of saying, you know what, we're going to figure this thing out. We're going to get it. So that's happened there. And then, you know, I don't know. It's just a little something that I just kind of noticed. You never know what it means. But I felt the energy. I felt the guys playing loose. I felt them having that focus. And sometimes you just feel that. And that's a credit to them, man. I don't know if they had a bunch of coffee or what they had pregame, but it worked.
See that? See what he's talking about? And by the way, Nagy's a guy who a couple of years ago, all these wide receivers were schemed open, right? And his offense has regressed, no doubt. But I've seen him with the ability to be a head coach in the league at a pretty high level. What he's talking about is real. Now, maybe the team was a little despondent about Trubisky as quarterback originally because he really is not accurate down the field. And so they're thinking, we'd rather have Foles. Maybe they saw Foles, an immobile quarterback behind the offensive line, and they were more deflated, and Nagy had a very predictable game plan, and that further deflated the team. Yes, that can affect performance. But the way Mitch Trubisky has handled himself through this process, and then Foles gets hurt, and now Trubisky's forced back in, I think the team played for him. Now, Carson Wentz, on the other hand, team doesn't play for him. And part of that is run the offense the coach wants you to run. Trubisky, look what Nagy said. They just had more energy. In other words, he didn't change really anything, but he has a quarterback with the humility to run the offense, not try to be the hero. And the team responds to it. How about Doug Peterson? Can he get his team to respond? Well, you would say, no, it's on Peterson. Except, what happened against the Saints? Jalen Hurts ran the offense. He stayed within himself. He didn't try to do too much. They just beat the number one defense in the NFL. Number one in the NFL. No, you can't trade Carson Wentz to the Bears anymore. They wouldn't take him. Andre in Massachusetts, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Yeah, how you doing, Max? Thanks for taking my call. Yes, Jalen Hurts, he stayed within himself. He's pressured 14 yards for a grand total of 0 sacks and 82 yards game, as you said, up against top defense. Fact of the matter is this. Carson Wentz, he's good friends with Jeffrey Lurie, the owner. Okay, so get him on the Cessna 500. Get him on the Eclipse. Get him on the private jet and get him up out of there. Because this is not about Carson Wentz. It's about the great fans from the city of Philadelphia. We can see basic eye tests. The team is better energy. The offense has more continuity. Carson Wentz, he could be a good NFL player somewhere else, but people in Philadelphia, they've been shackled for too long.
By the way, but it's always been this way. Here's the thing, Andre. It's always been this way with Wentz. The team clearly performed better with Nick Foles. If not in the Super Bowl season, where Foles went undefeated in the playoffs, obviously, won Super Bowl MVP. Tom Brady threw for 500 yards. Nick Foles won Super Bowl MVP. Remember when, what's his name, the cornerback, Raj, the New England cornerback, everyone was mad they didn't put in the game.
Malcolm? Was it Malcolm?
In the Super Bowl.
No, not Malcolm. The one, I know you're talking about. But yeah, we just talked about this last week.
Now his name is escaping me now. But the point is,
Malcolm
Belichick
Butler.
was daring. Malcolm Butler. Belichick was daring Nick Foles to beat him through the air. Look, I'm going to take Malcolm Butler out. Again, throw it down the field. We just don't want you to run against us. Nick Foles beat him through the air. Trick plays, all catching passes, all kinds of stuff. The team was energized. You could say, well, yeah, but Carson Wentz was great that year until he got hurt. Who knows what he would have done? But the next year, they were 5-6 with Carson Wentz. They caught fire with Nick Foles. The next year, when Wentz was out for the playoffs, after being overrated down the stretch, and I told everyone, and that's the root of the problem. People told him how great he was. After being overrated down the stretch, you got a 40-year-old quarterback, never been in the playoffs, come in and lost to Seattle by the same score that Wentz lost to them in Week 12. They were no worse. That's a 40-year-old guy with a bum leg. And then yesterday, you saw how much better they are with Jalen Hurts. It's not just that it's Jalen Hurts or Wentz. It's anyone but Wentz the team responds to. But you know what? You saw about the great fans in Philly? I disagree with Andre from Massachusetts. I think they should keep Wentz. Jeffrey Lurie, never mind what I've been saying. Keep Wentz right in there. And by the way, you hear what Stephen Jones said about Mike McCarthy? I love it too. You know why? Let Mike McCarthy keep coaching. Let Carson Wentz keep playing. And let my New York football Giants not worry about two NFC East rivals. I'm a Giants fan. I hope they keep starting Carson Wentz. News from Max Kellerman Nation. Andre just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today. Cowboys got the W, but how much did it cost? At what cost? No doubt, coming up, it's time for some straight talk. Look, we all drop our phones. It happens. You fumble it, crack it, splash it. Well, Straight Talk Wireless now offers this new platinum. Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. Tom Brady and the Bucs bounced back. We're going to get into that in a bit. New York football Giants, don't lose faith, Giants fans. I think Giants are taking the NFC East still. By the way, you see Edgar Berlanga, Puerto Rican fighter out of New York City, Lower East Side in Brooklyn. He came into his fight on Top Rank Boxing, ESPN Boxing, Saturday night in the undercard of the Shakur Stevenson fight. Came into the fight 15-0 with 15 first-round knockouts. Fought a kid who was undefeated, was on Showbox, which is, for up-and-coming fighters. And this fighter lost a decision, but fought pretty well early, but lost a decision on Showbox, his only loss. Berlanga knocked him out in the first round. Berlanga's now 16-0 with 16 first-round knockouts. That's real. Plans to fight in June, Puerto Rican Day Parade weekend at Madison Square Garden. Pennzoil synthetic motor oils are made from natural gas that gives you unbeatable engine protection. The proof is in the Pennzoil based on Sequence 4A wear test using SAE 5W30. Going to get right down to it.
We got you covered.
Let me tell you what I think it means.
No doubt.
What you got,
All right,
Raj?
Max, you alluded to this earlier, but hey, even on a bad day, the Chiefs are unbeatable.
No doubt. With the money on the line, they ain't going to lose. I mean, they didn't go undefeated. They lost the game this year to the Raiders. They may have another loss before the end of the season. I don't know. But they play cat and mouse just to keep themselves interested, it seems. The Chiefs, with the money on the line, I'm taking them as the favorite to beat the NFL. Not the odds-on favorite, meaning, well, they're under 50-50, as all NFL teams are almost every season, but they have the best odds of any team. No, I'm taking them as better than 50-50 to win the Super Bowl.
Fair enough. All right, hey, the Cleveland baseball team needed to change their name.
Nah, son, I got to say something about that. I think that's, if Native American groups say we find the term Indians to be offensive, but I've spoken to some members of Native American groups who said Indians is like what we say nowadays, right? So I think Chief Wahoo was offensive, right? I think if the sentiment is that the prevailing sentiment in the Native American community, for lack of a better word, is yes, it needs to change. We're offended. Fine. I don't see this as the same as the Washington franchise name. That was pejorative. That was a real slur. But it's okay if you change the name Indians. Okay. You know, that's fine. They can change it.
Gotcha. Hey, John Gruden and the Raiders just ain't ready for prime time.
No doubt. The Raiders are built to give the Chiefs problems, but they have to be built to actually win games against other teams as well. And they're not there yet. They're moving in the right direction. They're not there yet.
All right. And quickly, man, you heard McCarthy's coming back. Now we got a worse draft pick. That was a costly win for my Cowboys.
No doubt. As I was saying in the last segment, if you want to keep Carson Wentz playing Jeffrey Lurie, be my guest. If you, Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones, want to keep Mike McCarthy as the coach, thank you, because I'm a New York Football Giants fan.
Somebody give me something to believe.
The College Football Playoff on ESPN.
Is this dude Taylor Horton Tucker for real? I think the Lakers may have to give him a deal before Daryl Morey poaches him. The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, and Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I mean, Taylor Horton Tucker, he got some wiggle in his game for a wide body. And I know, look, if everyone's out and it's the preseason, you have certain guys who could drop 33 points. But you know it when you see it. Like, that guy is – Taylor Horton Tucker's a good basketball player. And he's only 20, barely played last year. By the way, McMenamin had it. He played Taylor Horton Tucker played where is it? 81 minutes his rookie season at age 19 last season, right? Plus minus of plus 36. That's, it's just a data point. But another data point is he dropped 33 points last night. I'm just saying, ain't a lot of data points, but the ones we got look pretty good, don't they? Ooh, if he's an actual baller, the Lakers are going to be impossible this year. Max Kellerman Show presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Eagles' Jalen Hurts wins his first start. Hurts gave the Eagles offense the jolt Coach Doug Peterson was looking for. In a 24-21 victory over the Saints, Hurts went 17 for 30 for 167 yards and a touchdown and ran 18 times for 106 yards. Is it a wrap for Wentz? Hell yeah. Jeffrey Lurie deserves what he gets. He sticks with Wentz, his team stinks. He is clearly empowering Wentz, and the coach is shook. Doug Peterson is scared. He couldn't even say after the game, he couldn't fix his mouth to praise Jalen Hurts. Well, it's really more of a team thing because he's afraid of Carson Wentz. This is what I heard a couple years ago. That's the reporting that was coming out of, and what I was hearing out of Philadelphia. The team is scared. Everyone but Zach Ertz thinks don't get on the wrong side of Carson Wentz. What has Wentz ever done to have that kind of power? And he thinks he knows it all? Carson Wentz had most of one great season. He didn't even get all the way there. And his backup went on the Super Bowl run and won Super Bowl MVP. And the next year they were 5-6 when he got hurt again. Never mind that the best ability is availability, and he doesn't seem to be available very much. When he is available, you wish he wasn't available. Nick Foles took a 5-6 team. They caught fire, made the playoffs, beat the Bears, almost beat the Saints. On a perfect throw by Nick Foles, by the way. Alshon Jeffrey dropped the ball. Nick Foles threw it perfectly. Almost got him back to the NFC Championship game. And then the following year, Carson Wentz was praised for stinking at the end of the year. But he was beating bad NFC East teams, barely by the skin of his teeth, and getting lucky that they were recovering the ball when he was fumbling and stuff on third down in the fourth quarter consistently. Getting lucky. And people say, he's in the MVP. What? MVP? He was stunk. And I told you that. Wrong, but I acknowledge so many injuries, a lot of guys dropping balls. He probably is an average. He's probably like the 15th best quarterback in football. I was giving him the benefit of the doubt. coming back from catastrophic injury. He was not moving the same, but considering the circumstances, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. He's probably about an average quarterback, and maybe he was. But he started reading his press clippings. He didn't really adjust anything. He was losing games, making stupid mistakes, trying to play hero ball, which is really foolish. Making one great throw a game, 2 or 3 okay ones, and every other play he was awful, making bad decisions, poor execution. And after the game, getting up at the post-game presser, this is just the way we do things around here. I'll probably always have to walk that line and not know what side of the line I'm on. But that's just the way we do things around here. Sit your you-know-what down. Sat him down, and what happened? Jalen Hurts comes in the game. They look good, don't they? And then they start Jalen Hurts. Now, if the offensive line was the problem for Carson Wentz, don't you think a rookie second-round pick making his first start of his NFL career against behind that offensive line, against the best defense in the NFL, at least recently, don't you think he'd be sacked once, right? He wasn't sacked at all. He didn't try to do too much. He did what he was supposed to do. And they won. Why do you think the team responds when Carson Wentz comes out of the game? I'd never question Carson Wentz's toughness or his talent. But he needs humility. He doesn't have it, obviously. He needs to work on everything. Like, they need to rebuild Carson Wentz. And I hope they do it with him starting. You know, I hope the Eagles do that. I'm a Giants fan. I hope they give Carson Wentz all the rope in the world to hang the organization with. He's terrible. Do you understand? He's the worst statistical starter in the NFL under center. He's the worst starting quarterback statistically in the NFL this year. So that's the offensive line's fault. The offensive line was 11th in win rate pass blocking. The offensive line gave up 0 sacks to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts threw 0 interceptions. They recovered the ball once. He was held up. Hurts was held up when they should have been giving the ball to the running back and chewing clock, right? He was held up and they punched the ball out. One time. It's the only turnover. So much better than Wentz. And I don't even know if Hurts is the real deal, but they're going to have to find out. By the way, we have so many data points now. It's getting embarrassing. So Foles takes over the team, they win the Super Bowl. Foles takes over a 5-6 team. And from sitting Carson Wentz and Foles coming in, they catch fire, make the playoffs, beat the Bears on the road, almost beat the Saints on the road. The following season, Carson Wentz gets to play the whole thing, right? And they catch fire at the end against the worst division in football. They just got healthy against the Cowboys, Washington, and the Giants. They were barely beating them and lucky to do so. They were recovering fumbles. Carson Wentz's fumbles. They were getting lucky to fall on the ball. Barely winning. Carson Wentz thought he was the cat's pajamas, right? What happened? He gets hurt. Josh McCown comes into the playoffs and does just as well as Carson Wentz. Well, how do you know he does just as well? Because they lost to Seattle with McCown as quarterback, a 40-year-old making his first playoff appearance on a bum leg. The score against Seattle in that playoff game was the exact same score that the Eagles put up against Seattle week 12 with Carson Wentz under center. How many data points do you need before you say, yep, the guy's no good? He's untradeable. He's no good. By the way, did you see Doug Peterson at the post-game presser? Do we have that Peterson sound? Shook. Coach was shook. He couldn't even bring himself to say, yeah, now finally he's announced Jalen Hurts as a starter, but he didn't want to harp on Hurts because what if Jeffrey Lurie finds out he's not praising Carson Wentz? Listen to Coach Doug Peterson after the game.
You know, I'm gonna enjoy this one. I'm gonna go home and relax and be with my family tonight and enjoy this win and get ready for the week.
Mm-hmm. Just answer the question, Coach. Or Jeffrey Lurie, is it impossible for him to answer the question, right? Is it impossible? Howie Roseman saw this coming. Not that Howie Roseman should keep his job either, but he saw it coming. That's why he drafted Hurts. He saw Wentz's regression. What if he continues to regress? He's continued to regress. It's over. It's all over for Wentz. He's done. Done. Don't tell me it's Hurts's mobility that saved him behind a bad offensive line. Again, they're 11th in the league at win rate pass blocking. There are 32 teams in the league. So 11 is really straddling. Are they top 50 percentile? Certainly. That would be in the top 16. The top 10 would be upper third percentile, right? But 11 is really straddling. If there were 33 teams, 11 would be the top third of the league. So they're right there. And Wentz fumbles all the time, takes sacks all the time, throws interceptions all the time. Jalen Hurts didn't throw any interceptions, 0 sacks. Well, it's because he's fast. Could Randall Cunningham scramble? Because Randall Cunningham, speaking of running quarterbacks for the Philadelphia Eagles, was sacked 60 times one season. And that wasn't even the worst one with the Eagles. He was sacked 72 times another season. Okay, it's not about just, yes, it helps Hurts, of course, but that's not just what it's about. Hurts will execute the game plan. Foles executed the game plan. Doug Peterson's game plan. Josh McCown would just simply execute the game plan, or at least try to, but no, Wentz knows better. Wentz knows better. He's going to do what he's going to. It's just the way we do things around here. Just sit down, Wentz. Think about what you did. And hopefully Jeffrey Lurie interferes enough that Wentz is back there starting next year. So my Giants have one NFC opponent, East opponent, they don't even have to worry about. They won't even have to worry about it. Marcus Spears joins me now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Marcus, swagoo.
What's up, my brother?
What's going on? Oh, I guess Carson Wentz finally lost his job. Marcus, what do you think?
I mean, that what I think is what was inevitable. If it wasn't going to be type of emotional situation where Philly didn't want to move on from Carson, he played his way into that match. Like, look, man, you talked about Carson and obviously talked about his decline and he wasn't the guy and all of that. And, you know, we could always get into that conversation about, you know, what should be or what the thought process is. But you know, from my perspective, especially when you're talking about a former player and an analyst and a guy that's been released and a guy that has had a guy take over a starting position because performance wasn't.
See, that's why you should listen to me, Marcus. That never happened to me. Never been released. Never had anyone take over a starting position from me. That's why you should listen to me about football.
Yeah, you know, we all ain't Max Kellerman though. So it's
no NFL team has ever released me.
It's what the league is, bro. And Carson Wentz is responsible for himself being in this position. Now you got people that fight tooth and nail. You know, I tweeted earlier this year that Carson reminded me of Jameis Winston. And I wasn't talking about
it's a good comparison.
I wasn't talking about the overall career. I was talking about what I was watching transpire this year. And that's not good enough when you're not surrounded. Like here's the thing too, Max. Like, people talk about Jameis, obviously, and we have the comparison with Carson. And from me, not everybody was feeling that. But Jameis was actually surrounded by really good football players. Carson stunk and was devoid of talent. So
why is it? But Marcus, that didn't seem to bother Jalen Hurts. They just beat the best defense in the NFL. This is the thing. Let me ask you, as a teammate of someone, if you have a quarterback who you might feel is arrogant or or throws his weight around or won't just execute the game plan and also doesn't get results, doesn't that demoralize the locker room?
Hell yeah. But that's normal human behavior, right? Like that, especially in such a intense atmosphere like it is in the NFL locker room. And then but Max, it boils down to you can be that way if you're elite. You can like all of these things you talking about. I'm sure they've had quarterbacks that have gold jackets that weren't necessarily relatable, that were arrogant, that had all of these characteristics. But when you suck, and that's a part of it, then it's easy for people to move on from you. It's easy for guys not to play up to their standard for you. It's easy for guys to get lost in the thought process that we ain't going to win anyway because this dude sucks. So Jalen infused a lot of juice, obviously, and that's usually what backups do when they have – because backups are like – it's funny, man, the dynamic in the locker.
Most popular dude in town until they start, right?
But even beyond the outside perspective, within the locker room, backups are the cool dudes in the quarterback room, right? Like, they are the brunt of jokes, but they also feel like more of one of the guys. And obviously their attention is not as focused as the starter, and they don't have to deal with a lot of things that the starter is dealing with. But at the same time, you gain a rapport with these guys. And what you hope is if that opportunity ever comes, it doesn't change. That's what Romo was for us in Dallas. Before Romo, it was Drew Bledsoe, and Romo was just one of the guys. And then when he morphed into that quarterback spot, he had his moments. Romo had his moments of arrogance, and when we wanted to punch him in the face because he was just being a starting quarterback with the juice and the mojo and thinking he was, you know, God's greatest gift. But we all knew Romo was a dude. We all knew Romo, not only was he going to play well, we knew Romo was one of the guys. And he made a point to kind of get back to that. But I could imagine when all of the stuff is flying at you and you just took over as a starter, you kind of get into your own feelings. And then Romo had a big chip on his shoulder because he came from a small college and he was the starting quarterback doing well for the Cowboys. So, yeah, there's an element
as opposed to
the
Wentz,
backup.
who was the second overall pick in the draft and was told he was the, you know, he was the dude.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the Steelers. You think they're in trouble?
Hell yeah, I think they're in trouble. But I think any football team in trouble when you can't run the football. I don't care who you are. We get enamored with talking about Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers and all of the offense and putting up gaudy numbers and throwing for all of these passing yards and quarterback. The MVP trophy is a quarterback trophy. But you don't have success in this league if you can't run the ball, Max. And I'm not talking about you need to be Tennessee where Derrick Henry get it 40 times, or you need to be Cleveland where they got Chubb and Kareem Hunt. But I'll tell you, like a coach told me, Callahan, who was actually the O-line coach for the Cleveland Browns. He was in Dallas. We had a really good offensive line with Wade Phillips, and we were running the ball with Marion Barber like crazy, him and Felix Jones. And Callahan told us as a defensive line, we were all talking one day. He said, listen, if the run game can be dominant every single Sunday, you use the run game. But if you don't have a run game that can bail you out when other things are going haywire, you can't win championships in this league. And that's what it boils down to. Max, who was the Super Bowl offensive? Who was the Super Bowl MVP offense? Who should have been the offensive Super Bowl MVP for the Chiefs last year?
You're saying Damian Williams should have been the MVP?
Should have been the MVP. He was the most productive player offensively for the majority of that game.
But that means he's getting. But Swagoo, that means he's getting run blocking. Let me ask you about the Steelers, because I agree. If the run blocking doesn't get better, they're not going to be able to win a Super Bowl. Although they're good at time. They met. What am I trying to say? At time of possession, because those short little passes kind of double as a running game for the Steelers. So they're elite in terms of time of possession, which is what you want against the Chiefs, keep Mahomes off the field. But here's my thing about the Steelers. I agree about the run game. There's no excuse. You can't be running the ball to the tune of 3 yards a carry. It's not 3 yards in a cloud of dust anymore. It's not enough. But the Steelers hit the part of their schedule. Because of COVID, their schedule got mixed around, and they had to take that bye in week 4. And when you looked at it, you knew it was going to get tough around now, and they were going to be tired. Mm-hmm. Swagoo, they just played their 4th game in 19 days. You're supposed to have 28 days to play 4 games. And in their last 2, both off of short weeks, they blew a 14-point lead, and they blew a lead again yesterday to good defenses. So to me, I'm not going to overreact to a tired team who is probably going to lose that war of attrition. And then, by the way, next week they got the Bengals on a full rest. I think they're going to beat the Bengals, and people will forget about this.
Max, there's no need to panic. I mean, they in the playoffs, all right? So there's no need to panic from that perspective. But we're not having a conversation about them being okay. We're having a conversation about them being able to beat the Bills or being able to beat the Chiefs.
What about the Bills, Marcus? You like the Bills' chances?
I like the Bills' chances. Look, for as much as we talked about the Bills not having a lot of success in the first half, that defense only gave up 7 points in the first half with a pick 6. And they had a stellar performance last week too. Josh Allen playing well. I like the Bills. I don't think they beat the Chiefs. I think defensively they get look, but talking about the Chiefs is like talking about is water going to soak if it overflows, right? That's right. A different animal, but we can't get into this point of the season with all of this playoff talk it all boils down to who do we think can beat the Chiefs. Bro, Miami jumped out on the Chiefs, and there was no
Mahomes
doubt
threw two first-quarter picks. Mahomes threw two first-quarter picks against a desperate team fighting for their division at home. Fell down 10-0, and you blinked it was 30-10.
And you blinked it was 30-10, but not only that, they were up at halftime.
They were up at half, 14-10. Yeah, the Chiefs are going to be tough. Marcus, always appreciate it when you jump on with me, brother.
All right, my brother. All right, take care.
You check out Marcus on NFL Live. It's a great show. Marcus Spears, Dan Orlovsky, Mina Kimes. Sometimes you see Ryan Clark. James Harden finally gave his thoughts on playing with John Wall. Talon. Oh, my God. Just remember that name. Talon Horton Tucker. Lakers fans. He got a little 19-year-old second-round draft pick a year ago. No one ever heard of him. Dropped 33. Businesses have had to be flexible this year, from working remotely to pivoting their business models for long-term survival. Like restaurants moving their dead. Yeah. You're going to put your pants on backwards, right? ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. That is Raj Grobes, my producer from L.A. I'm in New York here on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I'll tell you what, Kevin Durant looks smooth in his return to the court. If you want me to be honest, and it's very preseason, the whole thing, did I see a little diminished, explosiveness? Not that you think of Durant as explosive, but yeah, maybe a little bit. It's way too early to say. Overall, I was impressed by KD seeming to not miss a beat. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. No doubt, by the way, is brought to you by My Computer Career, training for a better life. So there's a report that James Harden's not interested in partnership with John Wall. Still wants out of Houston. Who's this? This was Woj with... Was it with Ramona? Who was it with? We should attribute, even though it's here at ESPN. Wall's arrivals left the all-NBA guard, James Harden, unmoved and uninterested in pursuing a new partnership, and the franchise star continues to push the Rockets for a trade. Sources tell ESPN Wall had expressed hope that Harden might become excited about playing together with him in a backcourt, a prospect that Harden is rejecting as he prepares to rejoin the team Monday in practice, sources said. This isn't personal with Wall, as one source tells ESPN. There's no change in Harden's desire for a fresh start elsewhere. I think me and James can be a heck of a combination, Wall told reporters after the Rockets' 104-91 loss to the Chicago Bulls Sunday night. I just hope we get the opportunity to get into the regular season and see how it goes. Here's the problem. Wall should take it, not personally, but professionally. James Harden still wanted to leave is because it's commentary on the fact that John Wall's not an elite player. Imagine if LeBron James showed up, or KD showed up, or the Freak showed up. Would James Harden still want to leave? Probably not, right? Probably not. No, it's because who showed up was a guy, or Embiid, right? Some big who could play. No, or AD showed up. No, John Wall's not considered that class of player. Once upon a time, the thought was, because Wall he's not like Ben Simmons who'd never shoot it. He shot it, just not well enough. Once upon a time, you looked at John Wall and you thought, this dude is like a brilliant, like he's so fast. He passes so well. He gets to the rim. He can hook up teammates. He can do like all kinds of stuff. If only he shot it better and could get along with Bradley Beal better on the court. It looked like the whole was always less than the sum of their parts. But Wall's coming off a catastrophic injury, never did really develop a jumper, and so Harden not wanting to stay, Wall should take that. Not personally, but professionally. Like, damn, that's commentary on what the league thinks of me. At least what James Harden thinks of me. Not quite there. John Wall, if he makes the All-Star team, that's a great comeback season. That's what you're dealing with. A guy where if he makes the All-Star team, wow, look at that. Not a guy who's going to challenge for any MVPs. And if you got one other All-Star on your team and you're an MVP caliber player, that other player better also be an MVP caliber player or you ain't winning no championships. And at the age of 32, James Harden does not have a lot of time to mess around, and win a championship. Not as a central piece of a nucleus of a great team. So, yeah, it was Ramona Shelburne and Adrian Wojnarowski. That's what I thought, who reported that story. Meantime, the Nets' Kevin Durant scores 15 points in his return to the court. He was 5 of 12 from the field. 3 boards, 3 assists in 24 minutes. They beat the Wizards 119-114. So, according to KD, well, why don't you listen to KD? This is how he said it felt to be back out there.
Yeah, it felt great, to be back in a routine and get back on the floor and feel like a player again, I felt great. Everybody's texting, calling, asking me how I'm feeling, and I can't wait till that's over with so I can get back into the swing of things and just feel like one of the guys again, So it was a good first step.
It was. I thought he looked pretty good. I thought it looked like he really didn't miss a beat. Am I suggesting to myself maybe he didn't look as explosive? Not that you think of Durant as an explosive player, but yeah, maybe it looked like he was not. But, it's a first preseason game back. Come on. So far, so good. I'd be very encouraged if I were, I think Nets fans should be very encouraged by what KD looked like. And if he can hold up and do that and is really KD, then the Eastern Conference could have a problem. Provided Kyrie Irving, who said that he doesn't talk to the media because they're just pawns, that Kyrie Irving doesn't implode. That'd be a big deal if Kyrie Irving could keep his head on straight. I have some thoughts about Kyrie Irving calling the media pawns. And by the way, not talking to the media. I'm going to get into that in a second. Sid in North Carolina, you're on the Max Kellerman Show.
Hey, Max, what's going on?
Go ahead, Sid.
Yeah, so I personally think Aaron Rodgers is the, ability-wise, the greatest quarterback that I've seen, the most talented quarterback. So in comparison with Brady, where do you rank him and assess him all time?
This is a great question. I agree. Rodgers, until Mahomes came along, was the best quarterback I've ever seen. And I would say he and Mahomes are the two best. If I had to order them, I'd put Mahomes ahead of Rodgers by a hair, but I understand what you mean. Rodgers is more proven. I would say this. There's a difference between best and greater. And let me tell you what I mean by that. If I were to say, who's the best sprinter of all time? Best track and field star of all time? That's the one sport that can be measured objectively. Put a stopwatch on, time them. Since it is defined in that sport, the faster you go, the lower the time, the better you are. The best is whoever has, who is it, Usain Bolt probably? But if I said who's the greatest, the answer may change. Every top 10 sprinter in the world today would dust Jesse Owens. Meaning Jesse Owens wouldn't be in the top 10 sprinters in the world today. Every single one of them is better than Jesse Owens was. How many are as great? In other words, greatness measures accomplishments, which you only really ever do next to your contemporaries. How did you fare in your own era? Brady's greater than Rodgers, even though they played in the same era, in the sense that he was in a much better situation, so he won more Super Bowls, he's much more accomplished. But who's better? Rodgers. If you just had to isolate talent, Rodgers. What would Bill Belichick have done with Aaron Rodgers? And by the way, Brady was going to get his, I don't care where he went. But if Brady went to Green Bay, he'd have at most a Super Bowl ring. If Rodgers went to Belichick, oh, Lord, could you imagine? Now, there are those who may say, yeah, but he wouldn't have been able to survive with Belichick as long as Brady did. Their personalities would clash. Okay, it's fair. But then the peak of his, the height of Rodgers would still exceed Brady's. Because the fact is, Rodgers' peak exceeds Brady's now, and he wasn't with Belichick. Better or greater? Right? Tyson Fury is better than a lot. Like Joe Louis would have had a hard time with Tyson Fury. Joe Louis is 6'2", 200 pounds. That doesn't mean Tyson Fury is as great as Joe Louis already. Tyson Fury is 6'9", 260 and moves like a lightweight, but has not dominated his era the way Joe Louis dominated his. Better and greater are two different things. News from Max Kellerman Nation. Sid just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. At Progressive, they've made things even easier. They'll help you bundle your home and car insurance together so you can save on both. Learn more at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. We get into Kyrie's comments, calling the media pawns in a minute. But the Monday Night Football preview is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. The 9-3 Browns versus the 7-5 Ravens. Look, the Browns have been playing better football. I think the Ravens are more desperate to win this game. There are 7 slots for the playoffs per conference. The Ravens are in 8th place. You know what that means? No playoffs. The Browns, the bottom line is, can afford to lose this game. The Ravens are at home and cannot. I like the Ravens in I guess what would be considered an upset, even though the Ravens spanked them the first week of the season. It's brought to you by Progressive Insurance, with insurance for cars, home, boats, motorcycles, RVs, and commercial vehicles at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com.
You heard First Take?
At least it's good to hear your voice finally, because I know on First Take I only hear you on the intro and outro.
Now hear Max's Last Take.
Look, Kyrie Irving said that he's not talking to pawns, meaning the media. And by the way, Kyrie Irving's rich enough that he could pay a $25,000 fine for not talking to the media. You can't make his mouth move if he doesn't want to talk. And if he's comfortable paying those fines, that's his prerogative. Like, pay the fine. Don't talk. I'm not mad at him for that. But let me just speak as a member of the media. Kyrie, if you're calling me a pawn, when Colin Kaepernick knelt, of course there was pressure, to say, bad Kaepernick. It's not what I said. When Daryl Morey basically tweeted out, hey, freedom is good and repressive communist governments are bad, it's essentially what he said, what he meant. I didn't come out and start backtracking because China exerts economic influence. I said, yeah, what's wrong with him saying that? When Black Lives Matter was an ascending kind of political force that was also, kind of intertwined with the sports world, I never shied away from that. If I'm a pawn, I guess Kyrie means of my corporate paymasters, right? And by the way, behavior is influenced by incentive. The expression is it's very hard to convince a man of something if his livelihood depends on him not understanding it, right? So I get what Kyrie's saying. Am I incentivized to say, for example, yeah, they should play basketball in the middle of a pandemic, right? With protests all around the country, cities on fire, literally, right? Should I really be wanting to watch basketball at that point? But I was upfront about it. I said, maybe I am incentivized to say this. I'm a basketball fan, and I make a living talking about sports. It's in my best interest, right? So am I a pawn of my corporate paymasters? I suppose you could say that that's the case, just as Kyrie Irving is a pawn of his corporate paymasters, right? Because we're in the same racket. Kyrie plays basketball, and I talk about Kyrie playing basketball. And because the media is there, players get paid more. That's the way it works. So, if Kyrie don't want to talk to the media, don't talk. Pay the fines every time, 25 G's. Because, by the way, Kyrie's got it like that. If it were me, if I were advising my friend, I would say, damn, what is that? It's 3 or 4 times a week. You're talking about 100 G's a week? I know you make a lot of money, but I might just talk to the media. That's just me. Kyrie can do what he wants. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. What would Fred Sanford say? You big dummy. I mean, people can spend their money however they want, but 100 G's in a week to not talk to the media? I don't know. Ty in Philadelphia, you're on the Max. You know what? Bob in Boston. Let's go to Bob in Boston. He wants to talk about Kyrie. Go ahead, Bob.
Hey, Max, how are you? So after I read about Kyrie, I tweeted out, tongue in cheek, that the media should be fair to themselves as the pawn shop now, because you're all.
Well, look. Yeah, you're right. By the way, a lot of times the media is very easily manipulated, even if they have the best intentions, even if they don't realize that they're being used as pawns. It's not untrue, but that ain't the reason Kyrie ain't talking. Kyrie ain't talking because he's abdicating responsibility. Kyrie ain't talking because the media will start asking questions where he can't set the agenda, because there won't be enough positivity. That's not criticism of any kind. Critique of any kind, objective critique, will involve negative comments because no one's perfect. There'll also be plenty of positive comments. Kyrie has a control issue, it seems to me. Got a good one on Monday Night Football tonight. Ravens and Browns rematch. Ravens